10th of December is observed as Human Rights Day every year to commemorate the day the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. It marks a massive milestone in the advancement of humanitarianism. The UDHR proclaimed the rights which every human being is inherently entitled to. It is not dependent on race, color, religion, language, or sex. On this Human Rights Day, we, the students of Political Science Department of Baselius College, is here to present before you human rights.
Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, whatever our nationality, sex, color, religion, etc. It is commonly understood as basic fundamental rights that a person cannot be denied by an individual or any government simply because she or he is a human being.
Once Voltaire said, "I do not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Freedom of expression is a fundamental human right enshrined in the Article 19 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and freedom of speech is the most important right under the freedom of expression. What is freedom of speech? Freedom of speech is a right afforded to a person to be able to speak his or her mind without fear that the government will restrict or censor what they have to say, or will retaliate against them for expressing himself. Just because you are allowed to say whatever you want does not mean that you will not suffer any consequence as a result. It just means that the government cannot violate your right to do so. But around the world, there are governments and those wielding powers who find many ways to obstruct the freedom of speech. The censors are also active in cyberspace, restricting the use of internet and new media. This right is particularly important for journalists and those people working in media. They must be free to criticize the government policies and our public institutions without fear of prosecution. But state can impose restrictions to protect other human rights, such as a person's right to respect for their private life. Recently in India, there have been many instances that have stretched the envelope of what we define as freedom of speech. On the one hand, FIRs being filed against students for chanting Azadi. On the other, we have political leaders giving hate speeches. Let me conclude by quoting George Washington. If the freedom of speech is taken away, dumb and silent, we may be led like sheep to the slaughter.
Justice is recognized as both a basic human right and a means to protect other universally recognized human rights. Social justice and human rights share the same goal, that is human dignity equally for all. There are a few ways in which human rights can achieve social justice. They are 1. Promotion of equality. 2. Anti-discrimination. Human rights protect against direct and indirect discrimination based on sex, gender, race, religion, caste, political opinions, etc. 3. Welfare system. It provides welfare for all irrespective of any criteria. 4. Employment rights. Equal division of wealth is the cornerstone of justice. It can be achieved through providing equal opportunities for all. 5. Government accountability. Human rights provides a legal framework that allows government accountability. Social justice and human rights are two concepts but are linked together.
Hope as a human right. Rather than considering hope as a human right, it is ideal to see that hope is the crux of all human rights. Since human rights are right and freedom that belong to every person in the world, we could say that there is always an element of hope inherent in them that would ensure a better life for the one who possesses them. For instance, in the case of a victim of child labor and trafficking, a number of rights are violated, like the right to health and education. So, when above mentioned rights are made available for the individual, we are giving him hope for a better future through education and thereby saving him from abuse and exploitation. Thus, we ensure the proper social and economic development of all individuals by rendering them rights based on hope. At the same time, we can call hope as a human right in the sense that hope should be the yardstick for any right.
Human rights should intervene in the matters of religion, because if we look back into the past, we could see Western European countries giving supremacy to the church. Church was the ultimate power in Western European regions. People who questioned the faith or the belief of the church were persecuted. These were the conditions back in Islamic countries, which were ruled by the Islamic leaders. But the current situation has changed. due to democratic values which have paved way to the human rights, there have been a lot of intervening and addressing of issues of the minority religion in major religion-dominated areas. Problems have been addressed, but still there are problems like forced conversions, honor killing, and mass killings. These problems are seen as a major issue to the community and seen as a pullback to these societies which wish to develop. We may follow the Abrahamic religion, we may be pagans, we may be Sikhs or Buddhist, whatever religion there is. But if we keep our beliefs and differences aside, we are mere human beings who are struggling to live a prosperous, peaceful life. So let's work together and stop these persecutions against the religion. Let's respect every single religion. Let's tolerate every single religion and consider the whole world as a single brotherhood.
We all need food. It's a human pleasure, it's a human necessity, and it's a human right. The right to food is recognized in Article 25 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Article 11 of International Covenants on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. According to Article 25 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, every individual has the right to a standard of living adequate to the health and well-being of himself and that of his family, including food, clothing and housing. The right to food means every individual has the right to be free from poverty, malnourishment, food insecurity and hunger. The right to food has three main elements: availability, accessibility and adequacy. Availability means there is enough food for the present and the future generation. And accessibility means the economic and physical access to food. And adequacy implies that the food must satisfy the dietary needs of every individual. The right to food has three main state obligations. That is the obligation to protect, to respect and to fulfill. But when we look over to the statistics, we can see that about 690 million people are undernourished and 7 million people died of hunger in 2020. Yes, the fight for right to food still continues. Let us hope that by the early decades of the next millennium, that every individual will be able to enjoy the right to adequate food.
Education has a very important role to play for promotion and protection of human rights. According to Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education makes us aware about the civil and political rights, often called as first-generation rights, and the social, economic and cultural rights as the second-generation rights. The concept of expanding human rights through education is now popularly present and travel to encompass as a third-generation rights itself. So, it is very important that we know the role of education in promotion and protection of human rights. The Indian Constitution provides 6 fundamental rights from Article 14 to 32, and Article 29 to 31 provides with the cultural and educational rights. Education is a tool for eliminating the violation of human rights. An educated civilization can only know its rights and hence have the knowledge to protect it. According to Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General of UN, without education, we can see beyond ourselves and our surroundings to the reality of global interdependence. It is important to make each and every people literate, just not in order to make them educated and capable of earning, but also to recognize these rights towards themselves and each others.
Peace is the concept of societal friendship and harmony in the absence of hostility and violence. In a social sense, peace is used to mean the lack of conflict and freedom from fear of violence between individuals or groups. Article 1st of resolution states that everyone has the right to enjoy peace such as all human rights are protected and promoted. Development is fully realized.